This story was sent to me by a subscriber from Oregon, USA. She requested that I change all names for privacy reasons. What happened to her at 13 years old still has no explanation. Let's the story begin. A few weeks ago I received an email from a subscriber who asked me to share her experience anonymously. According to her, this happened when she was 13 years old, and even today she cannot explain what really happened that day. At first I thought it was just another strange childhood memory. But as I kept reading her story, it became clear that this was something far more disturbing. This is the story of a girl named Emma and a mysterious pair of red boots that should never have existed. Back when Emma was 13 years old, a new student joined her middle school. The girl's name was Ava. From the very first day, Ava stood out from everyone else. Not because she was loud or popular. In fact, it was the exact opposite. She barely spoke to anyone. She always sat alone during lunch. And whenever somebody tried to start a conversation with her, she would answer with short, strange responses before quietly walking away. Most students avoided her completely. Some even joked that she acted like an alien pretending to be human. Emma felt bad for her. So one afternoon she decided to sit beside Ava during lunch. At first the conversations were awkward, but after a few days Ava slowly opened up. The strange thing was that Ava never talked like a normal 13-year-old. The words she used sounded older, almost like she was reading from a script written by an adult. Even weirder was the way she referred to her parents. She never said mom or dad. Instead, she always called them the parents. Whenever Emma asked normal questions, Ava would answer things like, "The parents took me shopping yesterday," or "The parents prefer that I stay home after sunset." At first Emma thought it was just another strange habit, but over time it started to feel unsettling. Then one day during lunch, Ava told Emma something that sounded completely ridiculous. She said she owned a pair of magical red boots. Boots that could take people anywhere they wanted to go. Emma laughed. She was 13 years old. She did not believe in magic boots. But Ava looked completely serious. And from that day on she kept telling stories about impossible places she had visited while wearing them. Places with black skies, empty towns, and roads that seemed to go on forever. Emma never believed her, but secretly she enjoyed listening. And a small part of her hoped the stories were true. One Friday afternoon, Emma asked Ava what she planned to do over the weekend. Ava smiled and said, "I think I will wear the red boots and visit somewhere new." Emma immediately rolled her eyes. Then she jokingly said, "Fine, then let me see them for myself. Where do you even live?" Ava pointed toward a neighborhood near the school. "There is a blue house across from the old park. That is where I live." The answer instantly caught Emma off guard. She knew exactly which house Ava was talking about. Everyone in town knew that house. The problem was that nobody lived there. At least that was what everyone believed. The place looked abandoned. The windows were covered. The yard was overgrown. And the porch looked like it could collapse at any moment. Emma frowned. "You mean that blue house, across from the park?" Ava nodded. "Yes, that one." For a moment, Emma wondered if Ava was playing some kind of strange joke. Then she asked if she could come over sometime. But Ava quickly shook her head. "The parents do not allow visitors. Besides, the boots would not work for you." Emma laughed. That sounded exactly like something someone would say when they were lying. Over the next few weeks she continued asking about the boots. And every time Ava gave the same answer. They would not work for her. Then one afternoon, everything changed. As students were leaving school, Ava suddenly appeared beside Emma. Her expression looked serious, almost nervous. She quietly asked, "What are you doing after school today?" Emma shrugged. "Nothing." "Why?" Ava stared at her for a few seconds before speaking. "You can come see the boots today." Emma blinked. "Really? I thought visitors were not allowed." Ava looked away. "It is okay today. You can come, but only today." Something about the way she said it felt strange. Like this was not an invitation. It was a warning. Still, Emma had waited weeks for this chance, so she agreed. That morning she told her parents she would be visiting a friend's house after school. They had no problem with it. And later that afternoon she followed Ava through the neighborhood toward the old blue house. The entire walk there Ava barely said a word. The closer they got to the house, the quieter she became. And for some reason Emma started feeling nervous too. Even though it was a bright sunny day, a strange feeling began growing in the pit of her stomach, like she was about to do something she would regret. The moment they stepped onto the property, Emma felt the temperature change. The air suddenly felt colder. The sounds from the street seemed farther away. Even the birds were silent. She stopped walking for a second. Something about the place felt wrong. Very wrong. Ava noticed and grabbed her wrist. "Come on. It is okay." Emma allowed herself to be pulled toward the house. The wooden stairs creaked beneath their feet. Several boards on the porch looked broken. as if nobody had repaired them in years. When they reached the front door, Ava pushed it open without knocking. The door slowly swung inward. Emma expected to hear voices, maybe a television, maybe footsteps, anything that suggested people actually lived there. Instead, she was greeted by complete silence. The inside of the house was dark. The curtains blocked most of the sunlight. Old furniture sat beneath plastic covers. Dust covered almost every surface. The entire place looked frozen in time. Emma glanced around nervously. "Where are your parents?" Ava did not answer. Instead, she smiled and pointed upstairs. "The boots are up there." Without waiting, Ava started climbing the staircase. Emma hesitated. Every instinct told her to leave, but curiosity pushed her forward. She followed Ava upstairs. Each step groaned beneath their weight. The second-floor hallway stretched ahead of them. Several closed doors lined both sides. The silence felt unnatural. Emma could hear nothing except her own breathing. As they walked down the hallway, she kept expecting someone to step out of one of the rooms, but nobody appeared. At the very end of the hall, Ava stopped beside the last door. Then she slowly pushed it open. Emma looked inside. The room was almost empty. There was no bed, no decorations, no toys, nothing. Only an old wooden dresser standing alone in the center of the room. The moment Emma saw it, a strange feeling washed over her. Her heart started beating faster. For some reason, she suddenly felt like she was not supposed to be there, almost as if she had walked into a place where she was never meant to go. Ava stepped inside. Then she whispered, "The boots are in there." Emma stared at the dresser. A mixture of excitement and fear twisted inside her chest. She slowly followed Ava into the room. The floor creaked beneath their feet. When they reached the dresser, Ava pointed toward the bottom drawer. "Do you want to see them?" Emma swallowed hard. Then she finally asked the question that had been bothering her since entering the house. "Where are your parents?" Ava stood completely still. Then she slowly turned her head toward Emma. "The parents are here. We just have to be quiet." The way she said those words sent a chill down Emma's spine. For the first time, she seriously considered leaving, but before she could speak, Ava reached down and pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside sat a pair of bright red boots. They looked old, much older than anything a 13-year-old girl would wear. Yet somehow they looked perfectly clean, as if someone had been taking care of them for years. Ava stared at the boots. Then she softly said, "Go ahead, put them on." Emma stared at the red boots for several seconds. They looked completely ordinary. There was nothing magical about them. No glowing light, no strange symbols. Just a worn pair of red leather boots sitting inside an old drawer. She looked back at Ava. "I thought you said they would not work for me." Ava nodded slowly. "At first they would not, but they have been adjusted. Now they can." Emma had no idea what that meant. Adjusted by who? For what? Before she could ask another question, Ava suddenly became very still. Her head tilted slightly to one side, as though she was listening to something far away. The expression on her face changed immediately. "Wait," Ava whispered. Then she turned toward the hallway. Emma listened carefully, but she could not hear anything. No footsteps, no voices, nothing. Ava continued staring toward the door. "The parent is calling me. I have to go." Emma frowned. She had still not seen a single person in the house. Ava started backing toward the doorway. "Go ahead, put the boots on. I will be right back." Then just before leaving the room, she stopped, looked directly into Emma's eyes, and whispered, "Close your eyes when you wear them, and be very quiet." A second later, she disappeared down the hallway. Emma waited. She expected to hear Ava talking to someone downstairs, maybe finally meet one of her parents. But the house remained completely silent. Several minutes passed. Nothing. No voices. No footsteps. No sounds at all. Emma suddenly realized something. She had never actually heard another person inside the house. Not once. A cold chill crawled down her back. For a moment she considered leaving immediately. But then she looked down at the red boots. She had come all this way. And despite everything, she still wanted answers. Slowly she reached into the drawer. The leather felt strangely warm, almost like someone had been wearing them moments earlier. Her heart pounded as she slipped them onto her feet. Then she remembered Ava's warning. She closed her eyes and waited. At first nothing happened. A few seconds passed, then another few seconds. Everything felt normal. Emma almost laughed at herself. Maybe the whole thing really was a joke. Then suddenly she felt something. Not movement, not sound, just the overwhelming feeling that someone else was standing in the room, very close to her, watching. Emma's eyes snapped open, and her breath caught in her throat. Ava was standing in the doorway again, but something felt wrong, very wrong. She was not looking at Emma. Instead, she was staring upward toward the empty space beside her, as if someone was standing there, someone much taller than her. Emma followed her gaze, but saw nothing. Ava nodded slowly, almost like she was answering a question. Then she finally looked at Emma and smiled. Are you okay? Emma quickly stood up. Yeah, I think so. But nothing happened. The boots do not work. Ava's smile faded slightly. Then she quietly said, Of course they worked. You just do not remember. The words sent another wave of fear through Emma. Do not remember what? Ava did not answer. Instead she looked toward the hallway again. You need to leave now. Emma glanced at the window. It still looked bright outside. I can stay longer. My mom said I had an hour. Ava slowly shook her head. Number. It has already been much longer than that. You need to go. Now. For some reason Emma did not argue. Something deep inside her wanted out of that house as fast as possible. Emma hurried downstairs and stepped outside. The moment she left the house she felt like she could finally breathe again. The strange heaviness that had been pressing against her chest disappeared instantly. She did not even look back. She simply walked home as fast as she could. The entire way there she kept thinking about Ava's strange behavior, about the empty house, about the silence, and about those red boots. 10 minutes later she reached home. The second she walked through the front door her mother appeared in the hallway looking furious. Where have you been? Emma froze. What do you mean? I just came from Ava's house. Her mother stared at her in disbelief. You were supposed to be home almost 2 hours ago. Emma laughed nervously. No, I was only there for about an hour. Maybe less. Her mother shook her head. Emma, I have been trying to call the house for over an hour. You are almost 2 hours late. A strange feeling settled into Emma's stomach, because she knew her mother was not joking. And yet it felt impossible. She remembered arriving at the house, going upstairs, putting on the boots, then leaving. The entire thing felt like it had lasted maybe 30 minutes, an hour at most, not nearly 3 hours. That night she could not stop thinking about it. The next day she tried asking Ava about the missing time, but Ava avoided the question completely. Whenever Emma brought up the boots, Ava would simply smile and say, You do not remember yet. It takes practice. The answer only made Emma more frustrated. Over the next few weeks Ava began acting differently. She stopped sitting with Emma, stopped talking during lunch, and whenever Emma approached her she always seemed nervous, almost frightened. One afternoon Emma finally confronted her. Did I do something wrong? Why are you avoiding me? Ava looked around the hallway before answering. Then she quietly said, You should stop asking about the boots. Emma was shocked. Why? Ava lowered her voice even more. Because they noticed you. Emma felt her stomach drop. Who noticed me? But before Ava could answer the bell rang. Students started flooding into the hallway. And by the time Emma looked up again, Ava was already gone. That was the last real conversation they ever had. 3 days later Ava stopped coming to school. At first nobody thought much of it. Students missed school all the time. But after a week Emma became curious. So she asked one of her teachers, Have you heard anything about Ava? The teacher looked confused. Who? Ava. The new girl. The teacher stared at her for several seconds, then slowly shook her head. Emma, there is no student named Ava in your class. For a moment Emma thought the teacher was joking, but she was completely serious. The teacher even checked the attendance records. No Ava. No record. Nothing. A cold feeling spread through Emma's body, because she knew exactly what she had seen, exactly who she had spoken to, and yet somehow it was as if Ava had never existed at all. Emma spent the rest of the week trying to convince herself that there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe Ava had transferred schools. Maybe the teacher was mistaken. Maybe everyone was playing some elaborate prank. But deep down she knew none of those explanations made sense. People did not simply disappear, and entire school records did not vanish overnight. A few days later Emma brought the subject up with her mother. Do you remember Ava? The girl whose house I visited? Her mother nodded immediately. Of course I remember. You were late coming home that day. Relieved, Emma asked another question. Can you take me back to her house? I want to see if anyone still lives there. Her mother's expression changed. Back to what house? The blue house across from the park. The one where Ava lived. For several seconds her mother said nothing. Then she slowly shook her head. Emma, nobody has lived in that house for years. The answer hit her like a punch to the stomach. What are you talking about? I went there. You literally dropped me off nearby. Her mother looked genuinely confused. I remember you telling me you were visiting a friend. But that house has been empty since before you were born. Emma felt cold all over, because her mother was not joking. She actually believed what she was saying. The following Saturday Emma decided to go there alone. She needed answers. The walk felt longer than usual, and the closer she got to the park the more nervous she became. When the blue house finally came into view she stopped walking. Everything looked exactly the same. The broken porch, the boarded windows, the overgrown yard, but something felt different. The house looked even older now, as if years had passed in only a few weeks. Slowly Emma walked toward the front door. Her hands were shaking. She knocked once. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. Then she tried looking through one of the dirty windows, and immediately froze. The inside was completely empty. There was no furniture, no curtains, no signs that anyone had lived there for a very long time. A sudden chill ran through her body, because she clearly remembered the living room, the plastic-covered furniture, the staircase, the dusty hallway, all of it. Yet now it was gone, as if it had never existed. Emma quickly stepped away from the window. That was when she noticed something strange. Near the side of the porch, half buried beneath dead leaves, was a small object. At first she thought it was a toy, but as she got closer her heart nearly stopped. It was a photograph, old and faded from years of weather. Emma carefully picked it up. The picture showed a family standing in front of the same blue house. A man, a woman, and a little girl. The moment Emma saw the girl, she nearly dropped the photograph. It was Ava, or at least someone who looked exactly like her. Same face, same eyes, same expression. The photograph looked decades old, yet somehow the girl had not aged a single day. Emma stared at the image, unable to breathe. Then she flipped it over, and what she found on the back made her blood run cold. Written in faded ink were 4 words: missing since October 1987. Emma stood frozen beside the porch. The photograph trembled in her hands. She looked from the picture to the house and back again. There was no mistake. The girl in the photograph was Ava. The same face, the same hair, even the same clothes she often wore to school. The only difference was the edge of the picture. It looked like it had been sitting outside for decades. Emma shoved the photograph into her pocket and ran home. That night she could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes she saw Ava standing in the doorway looking up at someone invisible. Around midnight she finally got out of bed. She took the photograph and searched through old newspaper archives online. At first she found nothing. Then after nearly an hour she came across a local article from many years ago. The article mentioned the Blue House. According to the report, a young girl named Ava Bennett had disappeared from that property in October of 1987. Police never found her. Witnesses claimed she had simply vanished. No footprints, no evidence, no explanation. The case was eventually closed. Emma stared at the screen in disbelief, because the photograph was attached to the article, and it was the exact same photograph she had found outside the house, the exact same girl. Suddenly another detail caught her attention. The age listed in the article: 13 years old. Exactly the same age Ava appeared when Emma met her. A cold chill spread through her body. She checked the date again. The article was over 30 years old. Yet somehow Ava had been sitting beside her in class only a few weeks earlier. The next morning Emma returned to the school library. She searched through yearbooks, old records, anything she could find. Eventually she found another photograph, then another, and another, each one from a different year, different decades, different classes, but every single photograph showed the same girl. Ava never looked older, never changed, and somehow she appeared in school records again and again throughout the years, then vanished every time. Emma felt sick, because one thing became painfully clear. Whatever Ava was, she was not a normal girl, and for some reason she had chosen Emma. The question was why. That night Emma had a dream. She found herself standing inside the Blue House again. The hallway stretched endlessly into darkness. The air felt cold and heavy. Far away she could hear someone calling her name. At first the voice sounded like Ava. Then it changed, becoming deeper, older. Something was standing at the end of the hallway, watching her, waiting. Then she noticed something beside it, a pair of red boots, and slowly the figure pointed toward them, as if it wanted her to wear them again. Emma woke up screaming, her entire body covered in sweat. But what terrified her most was not the dream. It was what she found beside her bed. Lying on the floor, covered in dust, was a single red boot. Emma stared at the boot lying beside her bed. For several seconds she could not move. Her bedroom door had been locked all night. Her windows were closed, and yet somehow the red boot was there. The same boot she had worn inside the Blue House. The same boot she had not seen since the day Ava disappeared. Her hands shook as she slowly reached toward it. But just before touching it she stopped. Something inside her told her not to, so she grabbed a blanket and wrapped the boot inside it, then shoved it into the back of her closet. The next morning she told herself it had all been a nightmare. Maybe she had found an old boot somewhere. Maybe her mind was playing tricks on her. But deep down she knew the truth. That boot should not have existed. For the next few weeks strange things began happening. Clocks in her house would stop at exactly the same time every night. Family photographs would randomly fall from walls, and several times she woke up feeling like someone was standing beside her bed watching her sleep. Then one night everything finally made sense. Emma woke up around 3 in the morning. Her room was completely dark. At first everything seemed normal. Then she noticed something. Her closet door was open. Very slowly she sat up in bed. The blanket she had wrapped around the red boot was lying on the floor. Empty. The boot was gone. A feeling of pure terror rushed through her body. Then she heard it. A voice, soft and distant, coming from somewhere inside the room. Emma. The voice sounded exactly like Ava. Emma. For a moment she could not breathe. Then she looked toward the corner of the room and saw a figure standing there. A 13-year-old girl, motionless, watching her. It was Ava, exactly as she remembered her. The same clothes, the same face, the same empty expression. Tears filled Emma's eyes. She wanted to speak, wanted to ask 1,000 questions. But before she could move, Ava quietly pointed toward the floor. Emma followed her finger and saw both red boots sitting beside her bed. Then Ava finally spoke. You remembered? The second those words left her mouth, the room suddenly felt freezing cold, and images flooded Emma's mind. Memories she had completely forgotten. She remembered wearing the boots. She remembered closing her eyes. And then she remembered going somewhere. A place with no sky, no sun, no stars, only endless darkness. She remembered shadowy figures standing all around her, watching, waiting, and she remembered one of them choosing her. The memory lasted only a few seconds before disappearing again. But it was enough. Enough for Emma to understand why an hour of her life had vanished. The boots really had taken her somewhere. Somewhere she was never meant to see. When she looked back toward Ava, the girl was gone. So were the boots. And from that night forward, Emma never saw either of them again. Years have passed since then. She is now an adult. But she still wakes up some nights feeling like someone is standing beside her bed, watching, waiting, and sometimes just before she falls asleep, she hears a familiar voice whispering from the darkness. You remembered? If you enjoyed this story, make sure to follow Nightmare Files for more chilling stories and real-life horror experiences. And if you have your own unexplained encounter, you can share it with us for a future episode. Sleep well tonight. And remember, some doors are closed for a reason,